Disney parks have always been iconic because they're beautifully designed. Every park has fantastic views and picture-perfect locations, and let's not forget each park's special icon. But sometimes Imagineers make mistakes, and many of these mistakes have to do with the restyling of many of our beloved icons. That's why today we'll take a look at 8 Disney park mistakes we're happy to forget. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you can become part of our FPF notification squad. The Sorcerer's Hat. When you step into Disney's Hollywood Studios, you find yourself transported to another place in time, the historic golden age of Hollywood, looking down a streetscape of neon signs and elegant Art Deco towers, populated by the classic cars and madcap characters, who might have called Tinseltown home. With all the magic Disney can muster, you've truly stepped back into the heyday of Hollywood, and residing at the end of this idealized and lived-in Hollywood Boulevard is a 120-foot-tall giant blue pointed sorcerer's hat, and stylized mouse ears being held up by a giant Mickey hand. The Sorcerer's Hat, based on Fantasia's The Sorcerer's Apprentice segment, was built in 2001, centralizing Disney's celebration of 100 years of magic, the year's promotion around what would have been Walt Disney's 100th birthday. And like the Icon Tower, the hat way outlived the celebration it was meant to promote. Most curious of all, though, is that the hat was built directly in front of a camera-ready park icon, a recreation of Hollywood's legendary Chinese theater, which has stood at the end of Hollywood Boulevard since the park's 1989 opening, housing everyone's favorite and now retired attraction, the Great Movie Ride. What happened? The Sorcerer's Hat was removed in early 2015, restoring Hollywood Boulevard's view toward the Chinese theater. The Sun Wheel, Disney California Adventure.
Heads up, Disneyland. We have a new neighbor.
The world ends at the gate.
Not from this coordinate, Miss White. They're from California. Ooh, nice limo.
Is there a prince inside?
Sorry, girls, but any interest in a 100-foot grizzly bear?
Introducing Disney's California Adventure, a whole new theme park filled with Disney adventures and fun, right next door to Disneyland.
Let's go see him.
Easy, big guy. Nobody likes a nosy neighbor.
Call now to book your vacation at Disney's California Adventure.
When Disneyland's second gate opened in 2001, early word from visiting guests was that the new gate wasn't worth spending a day at. We talked about this before in our California Adventure disaster video. If you want to check it out, click here. But one of the main reasons that the park was a disaster was the park's ride collection. Woefully short on things to do, most of the park's modest ride count was relegated to Paradise Pier, a lane meant to recreate California's seaside boardwalks, the very ones Walt designed Disneyland as an alternative to. Even then, fans were quick to point out that those rides were off-the-shelf carnival rides, like yo-yo swings, a drop tower, a parachute tower, and a launch steel roller coaster. Not Disney-quality attractions. Looming over them all was the Sun Wheel, a 160-foot Ferris wheel with a brass 70s-inspired smiling sunshine at its center. The Sun Wheel was symptomatic of the issues with Paradise Pier and all of California Adventure. Set in no particular time and place, but looking like a decades-old ride in a modern boardwalk, the off-the-shelf ride lacked character, literally. What happened? As part of the park's billion-dollar redesign, Paradise Pier's timeline was reset to the 1910s, with classic pie-eyed versions of Disney characters scattered about. The Sun Wheel became Mickey's Fun Wheel, complete with a new lighting package to complement the World of Color nighttime show taking place in the lagoon at its base. But Mickey's Fun Wheel is gone too. Well, kind of. In 2018, the second round of facelifts swept through the land, renaming it Pixar Pier. Mickey's Fun Wheel became the Pixar Pal Around, with each gondola adorned with vinyl stickers of a famous Pixar pair. However, pie-eyed Mickey still remains on the front of the wheel. The Epcot Icon Tower, Epcot.
Celebrating the future hand in hand. So let the magic begin. Featuring the Walt Disney World Millennium Celebration, a worldwide tribute to the human spirit.
When Disney set out to build their own permanent World's Fair, they made sure it included a visual icon, a role filled in the real World's Fair of yesteryear by the Eiffel Tower, Unisphere, and Space Needle, just to name a few. The glowing white, elegantly symmetrical geodesic sphere Spaceship Earth isn't just a central landmark of Epcot. It's one of the most instantly recognizable architectural features in the country. Chances are, most Americans could identify the golf ball as belonging to Epcot, even if they'd never experienced the spectacular dark ride it contains. But eager to re-energize the park on the doorstep of the 21st century, Disney christened Epcot as Disney World's resident festival park, and hummed to the Millennium Celebration. A 257-foot tall tower was affixed to the 180-foot tall sphere with Mickey's outstretched arm, a giant magic wand emitting a glittering 2,000 high above, and pixie dust settled onto the sphere. It's not that anything was particularly awful about the tower in isolation, but affixed to an iconic, classic, and elegant architectural marvel? What happened? After the Millennium Celebration, the 2000 was replaced with the word Epcot, something akin to a neon sign over the Cinderella Castle reading Magic Kingdom. Mercifully, the awkward sign was gone by Epcot's 25th anniversary celebration in 2007. Golden Space Mountain, Disneyland.
All the way to Disneyland in California. This Tomorrowland has gone through a lot of changes since it first opened in 1955. The challenge of Tomorrowland is that by the time you get it built, tomorrow can be today. What's an Imagineer to do? I'm here at Disneyland with Dave Fisher. So updating Tomorrowland, how do you do that? With a crystal ball?
Actually, Tom, we used a history book. When we were thinking about renovating Tomorrowland, we wanted to create an optimistic vision of the future that would never become old. We were inspired by futuristic dreamers like Leonardo da Vinci, Jules Verne, and Walt Disney himself. The result is a land of the future that looks timeless.
Imagine if you step into Disneyland or Magic Kingdom tomorrow, only to find that the castle has been repainted yellow. That's the approximate experience that befell guests to Disneyland, when in 1998, Space Mountain briefly swapped paint jobs with C-3PO. The truth is that by the mid-90s, it was well past time for Disneyland to receive a new Tomorrowland. Half of the land's attractions had shuttered, and the rest were looking woefully outdated. The land hadn't received a facelift since 1967, but the timing was all wrong. The recent opening of Disneyland Paris had sunk Disney's finances, and then CEO Michael Eisner grew wary of large-scale, high-budget projects. We've talked about this lots of times, so be sure to check out our Tomorrowland 2055 video if you want more info. In short, a vastly reduced budget forced Imagineers to borrow the European-influenced fantasy future they devised for Disneyland Paris and import it to Anaheim. Maybe that would work if Disneyland got the Jules Verne-inspired Space Mountain, but with practically no money to do it right, Disneyland's space-age Tomorrowland was simply repainted in dull coppers and golds, giving a vaguely natural retro future look on the outside, but with its attractions all still side-by on the inside. What happens? Tomorrowland was gradually returned to white, blue, and silver beginning in 2005 as a commemoration of Disneyland's 50th anniversary. Leave a legacy. Epcot. Long ago, stepping into Epcot was like walking into an oasis of palm trees, flower beds, and fountains set before the iconic Spaceship Earth. That's long gone, for now, thanks to Leave a Legacy, another remnant of Epcot's Millennium Celebration.
To look at the legacy sculpture as not a memorial to the past, but a living sculpture, something that looks towards the future. It's the first thing that you see once you come through the turnstile, and will be the guest's first impression.
Now stepping into Epcot, you're surrounded in brownish granite monoliths, not unlike the material and colors of tombstones, and like markers you'd see at a graveyard, these massive granite walls, ranging from 3 to 19 feet tall, have etched portraits. But these aren't the deceased, they're guests who wanted to commemorate their attendance of the Millennium Celebration. If you had a photo of you, $35, or you and a friend, $38, etched on stainless steel, you might make a habit of visiting it each time you come to Epcot. And since Disney sold 550,000 of the 700,000 available tiles, that's a reality for quite a few people. But for everyone else, the entry walk through the Leave a Legacy monoliths is somewhat cold and unfriendly. At least Disney legend John Hench, original designer of Spaceship Earth, designed the forms so that they appear to cradle the geodesic sphere when viewed from a central point.
It gives them an opportunity to leave part of themselves here. And there's a certain magic in that.
What happened? Guests purchasing a tile received paperwork noting that Disney could relocate the image and/or sculpture anywhere within Walt Disney World at any time, and that they could be removed permanently after 20 years. With the last tile sold in 2007, that seemed to indicate that Leave a Legacy would remain until at least 2027. And since some of the monoliths weigh 50,000 pounds, probably longer, As part of Disney's ongoing reimagining of Epcot, it was announced that the original Garden Entry Plaza would be restored. True to their word, Disney will keep the Leave a Legacy monoliths, but move them to the outside of Epcot's front gates. That process started in May 2019. They are now shown amid a rainbow of color, and if you have a tile, you can use your phone to scan the QR code in the display, and this will give you a specific tile's location. California postcard. Disneyland's entrance is a turn-of-the-century red brick train station set high on a hill, with classic wrought iron gates around the plaza leading to it. In 2001, the new Disney's California Adventure Park was built on Disneyland's former parking lot, with their entrances facing each other across a plaza.
Well, you got quite a little park here.
Whoa, 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 whoa. This is hardly a little park, Mr. Boswick. Disney's California Adventure covers 55 acres and has 22 rides, shows, and attractions.
Each one is different.
But while Disneyland's quaint entrance was understated, historical, and fanciful, the new Disney's California Adventure was built with an NTB attitude and shows it right away. The park's entrance is made from multiple layers, giant letters that read California, soaring concrete walls embedded with the world's largest tile mosaics blanking the entry gates, a squash and stretch cartoon interpretation of the Golden Gate Bridge, and a metallic stylized sun with twisting rays beyond. The idea is that when viewed from the center, these layers line up to create a giant postcard that guests can step directly into. It wasn't a bad idea. The problem was that guests arrive from the extreme side and only see the effect dead on at their leading Disneyland park. What's more, the bright, exaggerated comic book architecture was one of the things guests didn't like about the new park. What happens? As part of California Adventure's billion-dollar redo from 2007 to 2012, the postcard entry and the land it was made of, Sunshine Plaza, were demolished. In its place rose Buena Vista Street, a 1920s Los Angeles boulevard that's a perfect complement to Main Street. The park's entrance was restyled using the famed Art Deco teal Pan-Pacific towers that serve as the entrance to Hollywood studios, but they make even more sense in Anaheim. The California letters were donated to Cal Expo, where they serve as iconic entrance features. Disney Quest, Disney Springs.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, and tonight I'm taking a jungle cruise. Actually, it's the virtual jungle cruise at Disney Quest, the world's first indoor interactive theme park.
When downtown Disney's glowing West Side 90s playground opened, one of its icons was one of the most mysterious attractions Disney had ever designed, a giant asymmetrical teal cube looming over downtown Disney, simply reading Disney Quest. A generation of Disney Parks guests longed to know what was within this enigmatic structure. The answer? Part arcade, part funhouse, part technological showplace, all Disney.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner. I'm here in the virtual reality studio where Disney Imagineers are creating a whole new world of storytelling. Tiny TV screens inside this headset actually allow you to step into the world of Aladdin on a magic carpet ride. It's called virtual because it's a world which only exists inside a computer. Reality because unlike film or television, you see not just what's on the screen, but what's above, around, and behind you. And you control when you return to the real world. I wonder where the exit is. Oh well, welcome to the wonderful world of Disney.
The long and short is that Disney Quest was Disney's attempt to break into regional entertainment, with ambitions to open interactive indoor theme parks in the downtowns of major cities across the country and globe. Imagine Charlotte, Columbus, San Francisco, Austin, Chicago, and Philadelphia, each having massive Disney Quest buildings appear in their respective downtowns, luring locals and tourists alike. And inside the two realized locations, Orlando and Chicago, Disney Quest was astounding. For about 2 years. Apparently, having learned approximately nothing from the Tomorrowland problem, Disney Quests were built on cutting-edge technology like virtual reality that were still in their infancies. Just a few years before iPhones, HD TVs, and household Wi-Fi would jumpstart an exponential growth of technology. And Disney Quest just couldn't keep up without major continuous investment that Disney was never going to provide. What happened? The Chicago location folded in 2001 after just 2 years. But that's merciful compared to the Orlando location, which fared much worse because it stayed open for 16 more years without an update. When it finally closed in 2017, the technology inside was nothing short of embarrassment, and the whole place reeked of 90s design. It was practically robbery that Disney charged an admission fee to get in. That said, its replacement, a completely new building called the NBA Experience, charges just as much as Disney Quest did, and simply features an arcade and Instagrammable moments. At least Disney Quest was nostalgic and had so bad as good appeals. This experience closed during the pandemic and never reopened. Since then, nothing has happened in this area. Castle Cake, Magic Kingdom.
Hello, I'm Roy Disney, Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Walt Disney Company. Let me be the first to welcome you as we celebrate the 25th anniversary of Walt Disney World.
Anyone who loves Disney parks knows that Disney parks love celebrations. In fact, most of the things on this list have been limited time overlays or additions meant to tie into Disney's ever-changing seasonal and annual promotions. But the biggest of all must be the infamous Castle Cake. Baked to celebrate Disney World's and thus Magic Kingdom's 25th anniversary, the 185-foot tall Cinderella Castle was entirely transformed with 400 gallons of bright pink paint, inflatable ice ink, gumdrops, sprinkles, lollipops, and giant cupcake toppers.
The 25th anniversary, the Walt Disney Imagineers outdid themselves.
They turned Cinderella Castle into a gigantic birthday cake.
What happened? Unlike some of the other overlays on this list, the Castle Cake wasn't just a frustration for Disney Parks fans who care about sightlines, architecture, and history. It was a major frustration for many guests from around the world. Think about it. Visitors to Disneyland are largely local or regional, which is why the California parks often host holiday overlays like the Haunted Mansion Holiday, It's a Small World Holiday, Guardians of the Galaxy Monsters After Dark, why Disneyland switches fireworks shows every few months, and why adding seasonal and promotional elements to Sleeping Beauty Castle or the Carthay Circle Beater are welcome. But Walt Disney World guests are largely tourists who visit once every few years, or even once in a lifetime, so they want to see the Haunted Mansion, no matter the season. Likewise, disguising the resort's most identifiable icon probably led to more than a few complaints. Insiders even say that couples raced to postpone or cancel their Disney proposals and costly wedding ceremonies thanks to the glowing sugar castle. So the Castle Cake wasn't just memorable for Disney Park fans. It also taught Imagineers that any promotional changes made to Cinderella Castle that followed would need to be tasteful, minimal, and, more importantly, not too invasive. Like all of Disney's year-long celebrations, this one lasted past the 12-month mark. But luckily, the Castle Cake was only around for 15 months before being stripped of its sticky sugar ornamentation and restored to a glowing white and gray paint scheme, which has since been replaced with a slightly warmer tan. And with this weird little gem, we wrap up the list. Don't forget the tradition comment last of the real ones if you made it to the end, so we can give a shout out to all of you in the N Squad screen.